There are little ways to bring that inclusion into bear. In the homes, in our families, a lot of parents say, you know, we have quarterly workshops. Earlier parents say, no, they can't bring their kids to the workshop. Nobody could handle him. You know, he's a piece of work. You would swear he's the spawn of Satan after you hear the parent describe him, right? But the whole thing is nobody will ever be able to handle him if you don't bring him out and give him the opportunity to interact with other persons. So if he stays in this nice little community of family and friends, and he doesn't get that opportunity to meet and engage with others, what will happen as he gets older? What will happen to him socially with all the other people who never got the chance to meet him and understand how he thinks and how he reacts? Because that is our main problem with people using the word inclusion and not practicing it. Because we have a whole community of people that the people out there will never get to know if we continue segregating them, if we continue keeping them apart. And this is what we have to try and change. I'll just leave one last point. As you know, I engage with a lot of corporate bodies to try to get funding for when we have our conferences, when we have our workshops. And you know, people always tell me, just call us if you need any help with anything, because we'll call them for technical assistance, different things, right? And when I call them and I ask them, you know, I have this very remarkable young woman who I'm sure would be a perfect office intern for you. How about giving her an opportunity? Well, I know somebody who might be able to hire her, you know. So I'll call them and see what we could do. And they always do that. They always pass it on. Because we heard before, you know, when they were talking about Shamla coming to UE, and UE not taking that opportunity, hey, let's pull her resume and see if we could be the ones to give her that opportunity to work here. And as they say, you know, it's just that, how we can look for these solutions. So keep that in mind as you continue, as you ask us our questions. You keep in mind how you could come up with these solutions for us to take this forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Niles. Now I hope you're taking down and writing down your questions because we're going to take all the questions together at the end. We now have our last presentation by Major Benjamin on Article 30, Sports and the Convention.
Thank you very much. I'll be speaking on Article 30 as mentioned, sport and the convention. Sport for persons with disabilities is not a new concept, but its full potential is a powerful, low-cost means to foster greater inclusion and well-being for persons with disabilities. It's not only beginning to be realized. Sport, gymnastics specifically, was first used in Sweden in the late 1800s as a means for therapy for persons with disabilities. Since then, sport for persons with disabilities has blossomed into an inclusive and included in 17 international games, including 3 Olympic-level competitive games. The Deaf Olympics for persons with hearing impairments, the Paralympics for those persons with different forms of physical disabilities, including limb loss and blindness, and Special Olympics for persons with intellectual disabilities. The growth of sport for persons with disabilities is reflected in 47 academic periodicals and journals that focus on adaptive physical education and recreation, and the many newsletters published by disability organizations worldwide. Sport works to improve the inclusion and well-being of persons with disabilities in 2 ways. By 1, changing what communities think and feel about persons with disabilities, and by changing what persons with disabilities think and feel about themselves. The first is necessary to reduce the stigma of discrimination associated with disabilities. The second empowers persons with disabilities so that they recognize their own potential and advocate for changes in society that can enable them to realize their fullest potential. The community impact and individual impact of sport helps to reduce the isolation of persons with disabilities and integrate them more fully into our community. Sport changes communities' perceptions of persons with disabilities by focusing attention on their abilities and by moving the disability into the background. I pause here because there's an athlete who I've grown up in Special Olympics with. His name is Ansel Green. If anyone knows of Ansel's story, Ansel represented Trinidad and Tobago in triathlon. He was the #1 triathlon athlete, not in Special Olympics, in the country. And he's a Special Olympic athlete. And when we see Ansel performing, we're overwhelmed by his ability and what he can do, because what he has done is he has moved his disability into the background, and people see the athlete and the prowess that he puts in the front row. Through sport, persons with disabilities encounter persons with disabilities in a positive context. Sometimes this might be for the first time, and see them accomplishing things that they've previously thought as impossible. The assumptions about persons with disabilities can and cannot do, what they can and cannot do are profoundly challenged and reshaped by their experience. As well, the tendency to see disability instead of the person is greatly reduced, in part because of the common experience that sport can share. When you see persons on a basketball court running up and down, you can tell who has a disability or who doesn't, because it's a common playing field. As well, sport changes the person with a disability in an equally profound way. For some, it marks the first experience of human agency. That is, it enables them to make choices and also to take their own risks. For others, the gradual acquisition of skills and accomplishments builds self-confidence needed to take other life challenges, such as pursuing education and employment. Sport also provides opportunities for persons with disabilities to develop social skills, forge friendships, other families, exercise responsibility, and take on leadership roles. Through sport, persons with disabilities can learn vital social interaction, develop independence, and become empowered to lead and make change happen. In the words of a participant who I shared with, and I quote, "I was amazed when I came to know the thrill of blind cricket." And I see Mr. Prasad is here with us. Mr. Bawani is here with us. I became amazed when I learned of the thrill of sport through blind cricket, since I couldn't imagine that I could have played cricket exactly the same way as my sighted friends. By playing blind cricket, I experienced a series of challenges, recreation for my daily life, and wonderful comrades. In mastering new techniques and challenges, each through the game and through teamwork, I feel a sense of mastery, which makes me profoundly confident and proud. I believe sport encourages and spirit of challenge through self-reliance, and both are essential for daily lives, unquote. I'm seeing the 3-minute warning sign about to be raised. So before she does that, I'll leap forward. In 1982, the United Nations developed the World Program of Action a global strategy to enhance disability prevention, rehabilitation, and equalization opportunities. This stated that member delegations encourage all forms of sport activities for disabled persons through the provision of adequate facilities and proper organization of activities. The program set out for the United Nations International Decade of Persons with Disabilities in 1983 to 1992, during which governments were encouraged to implement provisions in that time. The UN Convention on Persons with Disabilities, the UN Convention of Persons with Disabilities is the first legal binding instrument to address the rights of persons with disabilities in regard to sport. Article 30.5 and the convention states that with a view to enabling persons with disabilities to participate in an equal basis on other recreational, leisure, sporting activities, and goes on to list the articles, but I won't list the articles in the essence of time. Participation in disability-specific sport means that persons with disabilities are participating with others with similar disabilities. It is a domain that persons with disabilities often experience problems securing practice time in our public spaces, access to sporting facilities in terms of access into facilities as well as access to